So we're just about here in Theatre C, ready to start our presentation, and thank you for everyone joining us from LinkedIn Live. And let's see if there's an audience here. So in Theatre C, can we hear you? We do have a great audience here today. And I want to wish you a very welcome to this presentation. And I want to start off with a little story of a dog that I saved the life of last week. This is Jack, and he's alive thanks to the kind of technology and the industry that we all work in. His owner, Carl, sent me this message, and he said, I think this is a stark reminder of the kind of work that we do every day, and the importance of the HVAC industry, of AHR, and everything we do here. We have such an impact on people's lives, what they're breathing, and where they spend the majority of their time. And this is also a big motivation for me. My name is McGloin. I work for a Norwegian technology company called Airthings. And for the last 15 years, we've been on a mission to empower the world to breathe better. And that is a very rewarding mission. I think a lot of other people here will recognize that we're all a bit more than average obsessed about the air that we're breathing and the quality of that air. If you walk around the booths here at AHR, I think you'll see this stat a lot, and it becomes a bit of a cliche, a bit of rote that doesn't really sink in, that we spend 90% of our time indoor. By the time you're 40 years old, you will have spent 36 of those years inside a school, an office, a home. And just to let that sink in, I like to reformulate it in this way. So we as humans, we're actually spending more time indoors than certain species of whales spend underwater. We spend more time indoors than aquatic creatures spend in water. We are, whether we like it or not, become an indoor generation, an indoor species, as Velux, the window manufacturer, said. And thus, it is so crucial, so important that we have the means, the technology, to take care of that space, understand how is that space performing for us. Now, I think a lot of us here would recognize these abbreviations, but for all of those 99% of the people in the world that are not at AHR, the air around them is filled with these hard to name, misunderstandable parameters, air, molecules, components in the air that they're breathing in 28,000 times every day without maybe considering what is in the air they are breathing. And I think that puts a lot of responsibility and burden on us to make sure, okay, what impact does this have on the built environment? And what do all those systems that we see here, the mechanical lungs, really do to think about these spaces? And I think it's mind-boggling how ill-developed the human body is to actually detect the quality of the air that we're breathing. If you drink a murky glass of water, you pick up the glass of water and you can see that, okay, this is probably not good for me. If we eat some food that might be toxic, moldy, gone out of date, our body will react in violent ways to tell us, hey, let's not consume that. But we're not developed to sense, to test, to feel the quality of the air we're breathing. Many of these components are inert, undetectable for our nose, our tongue. The tiniest of dust particles, the one that we can't even see with our naked eye, those are the ones that we should be concerned about, not the ones that we can see in there. They just go in and out of our lungs. And thus we are dependent on technology to augment our senses to get a better understanding of the space that we're breathing. There are in particular 3 stats just to kind of get a sense of how crucial the work that we all do every day is to the people that are inside the building. The research have now found a correlation between particulate matter, tiny dust particles, and crime rates. We're all going around with tiny pieces of a tire inside our brains, accumulating PM2.5, PM1 particles that are so small they just go into our lung tissue, into our cardiovascular system, and get deposited within our brain. And we all expect that a home will have a smoke detector, a CO monitor, but actually the biggest killer of both of them, home fires and CO, is actually radon gas poisoning, both in the US and in Europe, and is actually the biggest cause of lung cancer for non-smokers. So it's a tremendous amount of responsibility that we go around with every day. So I'm Norwegian with some Irish heritage that I've already pointed out that. And of course, when I come over here, I enjoy, trying out the American chains and foods that we don't have in Norway. So I've been to Wendy's now for the first time. That was very exciting. And when I go and open up a Wendy's burger, on the packaging, there's a full nutritional breakdown. I know exactly how great or not so great for my body that Wendy's burger is going to be. And we expect that of all the food that we eat. In the same way, now unfortunately I forgot to wear mine today, but I do have a fitness tracker. Who else has a smartwatch or a fitness tracker on them, yeah? We're gamifying every step we beat. We track every heartbeat to give us that data to know how that we can optimize and perform and live better life. But why don't we have the similar expectations to the buildings, the spaces we are in? What are we really breathing here today? 3 years, this is actually my third AHR, so I'm very excited. How many of you been more than 3 AHRs? Okay, so it's a small group. 2 AHRs? This is your first AHR. Oh, wow. Okay, so I'm a senior now at this point. So this is a younger version of myself. 3 years ago, this was in Orlando, Florida. And I met this professor, Professor Borges from Syracuse University. And he runs something, and he was telling me about this research center they built up, this office building at the Syracuse University. It's called Syracuse University Center of Excellence, and where they look at air quality parameters and finally control within a real office environment. So they get real office workers, knowledge workers in to do their normal job for 5 weeks. Every day after their workday, they do a cognitive abilities test. The same cognitive ability test that we all take to understand the impact that alcohol has on our brains. They run those tests every day, but they tweak the levels of CO2 and VOC, volatile organic compounds. They go low levels, high levels, to match that your typically ventilated buildings and your well-ventilated buildings. So that way we can really find new data of the impact that the systems that we put in place here actually have on productivity, on health, on the cognitive abilities of people working within those spaces. And the results are practically mind-boggling. Some of the key aspects that we think about now in the modern knowledge day worker, a 300% increase in our strategic thinking by ensuring that space is well ventilated, monitoring those CO2 levels, the VOC levels within that space, and make sure that we have good enough air. The difference between their average North American office versus increasing those ventilation rates is a 300% increase in strategic abilities, information usage capabilities, and overall across those 7 parameters we're looking at, it's 101%. This research is also found in Joseph Allen's excellent book, Healthy Buildings. And I think the summary, looking at all of this data, is such a stark reminder and a key for all of us. The impact, the work that we do to ensure that buildings are healthy spaces is having a bigger impact on general people's health than doctors. There's another side to this, and that's, so we did talk about energy efficiency, right? I kind of want to contextualize it, because for me, our buildings, there are 2 aspects to it. It's the energy aspect, but also we want to ensure a healthy, productive space. Now, I flew over from Norway, so there's a bit of fly shaming for me to be here with you. But if you look at kind of both our energy usage and our carbon emissions, compared to what it takes to build and operate our buildings, airplanes are a tiny fraction of that. So there is both a huge problem, but also a huge opportunity to ensure that we're running our buildings optimally whilst maintaining that healthy balance. And that's why I refer to this as the core optimization problem. Really every technology that we bring into the building, I feel at the end of the day, is all about one thing. How do we optimize between a healthy, productive, attractive indoor space with the least amount of operating costs and energy usage? Now, every component that you see here on the floor in AHR is all about solving this optimization problem in some way or another. And the opportunity here, and that's why I love, there are 2 things I love in life. It's my wife and small, medium-sized, old buildings. Because that's where we have an opportunity to make a difference, and that's where I want to make a difference. And that's the kind of buildings I want to empower, not to only breathe better, but also to run better. The fact of the matter is there's a lot of providers here of controllers and BMS systems at AHR, but there is a big group of those buildings that are dear to my heart that don't have that optimization capabilities, automation controls, the BMS. So James Dice, I'm really hoping that he's on the floor here this year. I've never met him. He's an influencer on LinkedIn. He writes a lot about our industry. Really, really great guy to follow if you want to look him up on LinkedIn. But he shared this graph a while back, and he looked at that long tail of opportunity. You know, the majority of buildings, majority of our building space are small, medium-sized buildings, less than 50,000 square feet, around 4,000 or 5,000 square meters. They don't have BMS systems. Only 13% of them have what we consider like the bare minimums of automation to give them that ability to ensure this optimization problem. So how do we build solutions, capabilities for those existing buildings that have already been built, that are small and mediums? How do we change this ratio? There was a great presentation 2 theaters over by Johan Schadenrad from Johnson Controls and ECIO, and he was thinking change is inevitable, this is the opportunity. It was a great presentation there, and I think a similar kind of thought that I've seen in many other booths here. How do we create solutions that don't have this high upfront cost complexity of deployment that we have for those buildings that are more than 50,000 square feet? Your skyscrapers are massive buildings. Okay, we can take that capital expense that it takes to install a BMS. How do we give this love to those smaller buildings? What we've done in Airthings is to develop some pretty sweet wireless. I'll show you how wireless it is. Here's one of the devices. Look, no cables. And what's great with no cables? Very, very easy to retrofit in existing buildings. And then you might say, oh yeah, but the battery, you need to change the battery. Guess how many years battery lifetime this can have? Okay, who thinks less than 5 years? Who thinks more than 5 years? Who thinks more than 10 years? Oh, wow! The 4 people there in the front, if you go to this guy, he'll give you an award because that was the right answer. So all our engineers come from Texas Instruments, and we specialize in low energy electronics. That's why we'll be able to have not 5, not 6, not 8, but 10 different indoor air quality parameters in one device with up to 10 years battery lifetime. And that's the kind of solution. Then we talk about, okay, that 87% of buildings that don't have the controls today, that are missing the sensing capabilities, you know, how do we optimize them? Now we're talking a pretty good solution. And how do you connect that together without having to worry about Wi-Fi or security or connectivity? It's just having a gateway that's using the cellular network. So you're using the 4G, 5G bands of Verizon and AT&T to give you that data, bring it up to the cloud, and allow you to optimize and control that building. So here's the Space Pro flagship. We have a couple of other devices. You can come to our booth later and see them. They're very nice looking, very sweet. Some of them have screens, some of them don't have screen. The architecture of this then is, okay, we have wireless battery operated devices. How do we give that kind of optimization control to these small, medium-sized buildings that have already been built? Bring that up to a cloud solution and either straight into your building, so integrate with your Niagara controller, your kind of non-Tridium controllers as well, ECIO for example, to get that optimization in the ground, or even better, if you have it's like self-standing AHU units that maybe don't even need a controller because they're so smart now, so capable of just controlling themselves as long as they get that air quality data. You know, average out the sensor from 5 of these and just send it straight into your rooftop unit, and that's enough to give it that optimization to adapt to a more hybrid environment and kind of, you know, we're not using the offices from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Every day. Allow your system to modulate based on actual usage. Or to bring it up to your cloud solution, and we're really honored to have deployed thousands of these devices with some of the leading industry partners in the field. So we have some really exciting deployments with Carrier, with Johnson Controls, with Schneider, not only here in North America, but they're actually across the world as well. There's also an integration then to, for example, an integrated workplace management system like Planon. Bring that to your facilities team to allow them to, be more proactive in how they operate and manage the building. Let them know when your air quality is bad rather than the tenants complaining about it. But there is something here about becoming a bit overwhelmed. I'm not talking about listening to me for 20 minutes, talking at this pace with this energy. Am I talking too fast? No, it's good. He's saying it's good. Are we all agreed? Should I slow down? Rachel thinks I should slow down a bit. Just a little bit, okay. The Airthings Space Pro as I mentioned, has 10 indoor air quality parameters and monitors every 5 minutes. If you look at how many data points that would be in one single year, you're looking at over 1 million data points from one single device. Multiply that across 100 devices in a building, and you're very quickly becoming overwhelmed as a building operator or building owner. What to do with this data, how to ensure that we can go from raw data to something that's actionable and understandable. Am I doing better, Rachel? Yes. There are two ways to do it. So with our industry partners, there are APIs, so they can bring them into their platforms. But I also like to kind of push the boundaries, change how we present and think about air quality data, and particularly when we're introducing parameters that we're traditionally not used to in this industry. So bringing that into an analytics platform that really allows you as a building owner or a building operator to fine-tune and optimize a building and go from raw data to something that's more actionable. So there's a whole range of other ways of kind of presenting that, talking about the air quality data. I'd love to talk to you a bit, but with this speed of talking, you have to come to the booth because I wouldn't have time to tell you about it at all. But what I'm really excited about here at AHR, and this is my third time every year, I bring a little goodie in my back pocket and we launch a new feature. Today, you are not only part of a LinkedIn Live, but also part of a big product announcement, because we've launched what we call the Airthings Energy Efficiency Toolkit, which is a whole toolkit of leveraging wireless sensor data to allow you to find those actionable insights within your building that you can take to lower your energy usage within the building with simple tweaks. We're not talking necessarily about integrating it into a BMS that you might not have, but giving your building managers the actionable list of actually here's some opportunities, here's some zones in your building that we see potential energy waste. So one area where that is for example, how you're running your heating within a building. Using what we know about the outside environment and the inside environment and actually the usage of the space to tell you actually these spaces are being overheated. You're heating unnecessarily in the weekends, outside operating hours. There is opportunities to lower your set points or look into whether your controls are working as they should be. This is a really powerful toolkit that I'd love to show you more if you come over to the Airthings booth. I'll show you the numbers soon. I know many of you are asking, but where's the booth, Martin? Hold your horses. In Norway, so my grandfather used to be a fruit salesman on the market in Norway. And then whenever I was selling, particularly when he started selling the knives, he said, we have a phrase in Norwegian which is, ikke nok med det, which I think loosely is, if you ever watched I was watching last night, like the TV shops you have here, and they're trying to sell you a Hoover. And not only that, if you go now, you will also get. So in a similar vein, not only do you get a great, easily installable solution for a building, you get that insights for how you kind of go from these millions of data points to something that's actionable that any building manager can understand. You get great integration to some of the leading industry partners here. But ikke nok med det. You also get, this is your step to really approach some of those building certifications that are making a difference for building owners. They're really putting a premium price on real estate, whether it's the WELL building certification that certifies that you have a healthy, productive indoor space, the RESET certification, which allows you to certify that your indoor air quality is of agreed standard of what is an ideal indoor air quality, the kind of space that Professor Boyges from Syracuse University will be happy about. And also recently the Wired score has a new Smart Score building certification standard that really certifies that your building is on par in terms of using the latest technology and is integratable with property technology or PropTech. I think I sped up a little bit at the end, didn't I, Rachel? I got a bit excited about the certifications. They're very cool. So there's time for a few questions. I'm going to wrap up now. Thank you very much for your time. I'm loving the fact that we got this enthusiasm. Can I have one last whoop whoop before we go? 1, 2, 3. Woo! Woo! Thank you. Any questions? All right, see me at booth C5952.